Are you plagued by burnout? Well, stay tuned because I got 3 tips from you for how I went from fatigued to fabulous. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Joelle, the Everyday Avant-Garde, where I talk about all things art, business, and creative lifestyle. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit subscribe to stay up to date on all my latest content, and let's get started. All right, so this is part 2 in a 3-part series that I'm doing on burnout. In part 1, I discussed my recent experience with burnout and just kind of talked about like what burnout is and just some of my thoughts on that. So if you'd like to view that, I will link it in this video, hopefully, and in the description below. But basically, I was dealing with hardcore burnout for the past 6 months, and that's why I didn't put out any YouTube videos. But thankfully, I have recovered from it. I am feeling great, and I wanted to bring my experience to make my sort of comeback and also give you all some tips on the methods and things that I did to help me deal with it and recover from it. All right, I feel like I have a lot to say on this topic, which is why I am breaking down this video into 3 parts. And these 3 tips I'm about to mention, I personally felt that doing these 3 tips first made the biggest impact in my burnout recovery. And by starting with these 3 tips, it made doing the other 3 easier, and it just made the whole process go a little bit more smoothly, and it was easier to do. Because, with burnout, you don't really have motivation to do it. So I felt like by doing these 3 first, it sort of helped me have a little more motivation to like enjoy the other processes and get the other things done too. So I feel like the sort of obvious things to deal with burnout is either go to therapy and work with a mental health specialist or go on vacation. But see, the thing about vacation is that is just going to temporarily fix your problem. When you come back, you might feel refreshed for a little bit, but it's not really solving the root of your issue. So I do recommend people take vacations as often as they are able to, but that's not going to solve the root of your burnout, and it's just going to keep coming back if you don't do some of these other tips and do them, sort of habitually, or make them sort of like a part of your daily life, right? And that being said, I know that therapy and vacations aren't necessarily accessible for everybody. And there's people out there who they feel like they literally have no time, or they literally have no money. I get it. Like, the cost of things are rising with inflation and all that. Places are short-staffed. Some people have to work multiple jobs, or some people have kids in a job, or kids in multiple jobs. So I totally get that. There's people out there, people that may be watching this, that feel like, oh, dealing with your burnout is a sort of luxury thing that isn't really accessible for everybody. But I don't think that's true. I think that and that's the thing about this, the way I'm gonna explain the tips in this video, is I wanted to show different ways. Like, I'll give you kind of different methods that you can implement the tips. So no matter what your situation is, you don't have any excuse to not be taking care of yourself, right? Because if you already have like your normal to-do list in life, and then I'm telling you like, oh, do these 6 tips, and then you're gonna see like more things on your to-do list, I know for me and for other people, like, that could trigger you kind of more stress to that, response of seeing the list, even though they're things that are gonna help you to feel better. Sometimes these things might come up in the way that they feel or the way they seem. It might feel like work. So I just want you to go easy on yourself and, start with whatever things resonate with you the most or seems like the easiest to do. If you do feel ambitious and you do want to try doing everything all at once, I would recommend starting with whatever you feel is the most like draining or taxing task. Because getting that one out of the way first is going to leave your tank with a little more energy to get the other things done. Because if you save the most taxing for last and you do all the other ones first, by the time you get to that one, you just might not have the energy to do it. So again, if you do want to try them all at once, start with the one that feels like, oh, that's going to take the most energy out of me. Another tip I have for you on these tips is that if you're thinking, oh, like, I just don't want to do that, or it just seems way too much, because I totally get it. When you have burnout, you literally have zero motivation. So if you feel like I can't do this, it's too much, I would suggest just setting a timer You can do it for 5 minutes or even 1 minute, like whatever seems like doable for you that it's not going to cause you so much additional stress. Just start with the timer, do it a little bit at a time. And then, when the timer runs out, if you want to keep going, keep going. And if you don't have to. But taking those steps, even just a little bit, is better than not taking them at all. And the more frequently you can do these sort of baby steps, the easier it will be to sort of do it habitually and make it a part of your daily routine or weekly routine without having to actually think about it or have it take too much of your mental energy. So let's get started so we can get you recovered and get you back to feeling like your best self. My number one tip for burnout recovery is to clean your home. Now, please don't turn this off. I know you probably don't want to hear this because that sounds like additional work, right? It sounds like something that's going to cause you additional stress. However, hear me out. Okay, so say you want to go watch TV after you get off work because that's relaxing, right? And when you go to sit down, you see that the trash needs to get taken out, or like there's dirty laundry all over the floor, or something needs to get dusted. How are you going to be able to relax fully and maximize your relaxation when your brain is focusing on that? So for me, and this is the first step I took in my burnout recovery, when I didn't have the energy to do anything else but watch TV, I would at least try to take a couple minutes a day, however long or short I could do, and just tidy up my space a little bit. And I've even mentioned to my husband, like on my days off, when the house is clean, my mood is so much better. And I literally mentioned like, oh my God, I feel so relaxed right now. So even though that one kind of feels like work, it's a gift you're giving your future self. And it sort of sets the tone for all the other activities and these tips that I'll mention. And I truly believe that when you have a more clean and organized space, you will fully be able to enjoy these activities and tips in a much deeper sense. And like I said, be able to really maximize that time that you're spending. Because another thing with burnout is feeling like you don't have enough time. So if your time is precious, you want to make sure that time you're spending on your burnout recovery is being utilized as most as it possibly can. And then if you're feeling ambitious, like if you've tidied your home and you're still like, if I don't know, say you have the day off and you just decide to go on one and clean your house. If you're feeling a little extra ambitious, then the next step I would recommend after tidying is to declutter your items. And again, while you're like, how does this relate to burnout? Well, say for example, you are going to pick out your clothes in the morning and you're in a rush to go to work and you didn't get much sleep because you're feeling burnout, and you're looking for what to wear, and half the items in your closet are things that don't look good on you anymore, or they don't fit, or they're ripped or stained or whatever, they're just not serving you. Your brain, when you're seeing those clothes, it still has to process that, and it's still making decisions. And decision fatigue is another thing that can contribute to burnout. So if you get rid of the things that no longer serve you, it's allowing more mental space, like less decisions you're gonna have to make. That's why, Steve Jobs wore the same outfit every single day, because it was one less decision he'd have to make so he could save his brain space for all the other stuff he had to do. And then if you do some decluttering, then I would recommend organizing. But I would say organizing is like probably last on the list of things you should do. Because one, there's no point in organizing things that you don't want or need anymore, which is why I say to declutter first. And again, how organizing relates to burnout is like, for me, say for example, I'm working on an art project and I don't have that much time, and I need a very specific pair of scissors, like my fabric scissors, and I didn't organize my stuff and I can't find them. So then I have to spend like 20 minutes looking around for my scissors. And then by the time that I find them, I might not have the energy or the motivation to work on my art project anymore. And then I'm just going to feel, again, stressed, depressed, guilty. So when your stuff is organized, it's going to save you time. That's one of the biggest things. And again, that can also help with like the decision fatigue and stuff, and just not feeling like you have to take this mental energy to think about your material things and your possessions. So yeah, that's just wrap up the first tip. Tidy your home. That's just the basic bare minimum. And if it feels overwhelming, again, just set a timer for 1 minute, 5 minutes, whatever. If you do your tidying, or if your house is already clean, then do some decluttering. And if you've done that, then organize. But I recommend doing it in that order, and don't feel overwhelmed by this. This is just kind of like, this is sort of like a crash course. Like you don't have to do it all at once. Just baby steps, right? Because we're trying to not be stressed here. All right, my number 2 tip for burnout recovery is setting boundaries. Basically, when you're dealing with burnout, you need to try as much as you can to cut back, eliminate, hold the brakes on anything that is taking away from your ability to recharge as much as possible for you. There are a lot of ways of setting boundaries depending on what your situation is. So if you're having burnout from your job, if you're not able to take off some time, maybe 1 day a week extra, or go on vacation, again, that's just temporary, but just give yourself a little time. If you can't do things like that, if you're asked to work overtime, say you're not available. If someone asks you to come in on your day off, say you're not available. If you're getting work calls or work emails and they're trying to get you to work when you're not actually on the clock, again, just don't respond or say you're not available. And you don't need to give any explanation for this, because that's not what you signed up for with a job. You don't want to be taken advantage of. And I understand some people, they really want to prove themselves or, do good or seen as well, but if you are stressed and burnt out, your job performance is going to slack. It's going to fall back. So by doing these things, you're actually contributing to yourself being a better worker and employee in the long run. And again, you're going to be taking care of yourself, which is the most important thing. Taking care of yourself is more important than your job. Another thing that you can do to help set a boundary is that when you're having your time of relaxation or your personal time, or you're working on these tips or just whatever, either putting your phone on airplane mode or do not disturb or turning it off. Those are great ways to not be bothered, and you don't need to feel guilty about that, honestly. I turn my phone on airplane mode when I'm sleeping. I mean, sometimes even I'll get callers from spam or whatever, right? And it's how dare they interrupt my sleep? That's not cool for me. So that's why I always keep my phone on airplane mode when I'm sleeping. And then so I'm not getting woken up until my alarm goes off that I intentionally want to wake up, Another thing about boundaries is that if you have the energy to socialize, for me personally, when I was going through burnout, I really didn't want to hang out with people for a long time. I just wanted to be alone as much as possible because my job had me surrounded with people constantly all the time. But I understand some people are different. Some people are working from home and they are alone all day, and so they are going to need more, need or want more social time than I did. And I do love socializing, don't get me wrong, but just during that period of my recovery, it wasn't feeling right for me. It was draining my energy even more. But that being said, there were some occasions where I would meet with girlfriends and do things, very rarely. But when I did, I was being extremely intentional about making sure that the people I was surrounding myself with are people that I like, people that make me laugh, people that are positive influences or have positive attitudes, people that when I'm done hanging out with them, I don't feel drained. I feel refreshed and recharged and I feel good. So just be very careful of the people that you are choosing to be around. And if you're in a situation either at work or at home where there's toxic people around you, I would just recommend limiting your time around them as much as possible, or even trying to make a physical boundary of getting further away from them, closing a door or whatever. As much as you can, just distance yourself because you want to protect your energy and care for yourself. And another thing about this is regarding social stuff. If you get invited to an event that you just don't want to go, but you feel obligated, you don't have to go. You can just say, sorry, I'm not available, or I'm not feeling well, or whatever. You don't have to give an excuse. You can just say no. But if you can feel it in your body, right? When something doesn't really feel like you just don't have the energy for it, or it's not exciting you. So if that's the case, it's totally fine to just say no. You don't have to say yes to everything. And then the last thing I want to say about boundaries is it is a very good idea to take an audit of your social media accounts, the pages that you follow, people you follow, who you interact with, especially again during the panini with like a lot of the news on social media can be quite triggering and stressful, which is, you know, not contributing to our mental health. If you see their page all the time or whatever, and it just makes you feel like self-conscious, or it gives you anxiety, or it makes you feel anger or scared or whatever, even if it's just like a tiny little feeling that's not positive, just get rid of it. You don't have to see it. If there's people that like it's your family and you don't want to like offend them by unfriending them or unfollowing them, you can, like on Facebook and Instagram, you can actually like stay friends or stay following somebody, but you can like mute them or something, or like you can just unfollow them without unfriending them. So you're still like, they'll see that you're still like linked, but you're not going to be seeing their content in your feed. So that's another thing that you can do if you're kind of, I don't know, if you're kind of a people pleaser and you don't want to like piss anyone off, you can do that also. But yeah, there's totally nothing wrong with doing that for your mental space. I have a friend who recently this year decided he was just going to delete all of his social media because it was just not making him feel good. And for me, I think that's a more extreme route, but for him, that's what works. And that's another thing you can do as well, you know, or just take a break from it for a little bit, because social media does do some weird things with your dopamine. It's literally like designed to be addicting. So taking a break from it can kind of reset some of your like brain chemicals too. Personally, I love social media, and for me, I do find it to be sort of like a relaxing thing, looking at the different like art accounts I follow, etc. But I've been very intentional and careful about who I'm following and what I'm following. So I'm only seeing the things that make me inspired or educated or happy or laugh. And then I do go through it every, like, I don't know, 6 months or every year, you know, and just make sure I'm kind of like cleaning up my feed. So it's only the stuff that energetically makes me feel good. Okay, my third and final tip for this video on burnout recovery is nourish your body. I feel like the bare minimum is just make sure you're getting enough sleep and staying hydrated. That's the bare minimum you should be doing in this step. If you're not taking that one already, do that one first for sure. So for me, when I started going through my burnout at my restaurant job, I was, because of all the energy and energy and toll it was taking on my body and stuff like that. One, I was drinking more. It didn't help that there's a bar right next door to my restaurant where we get 50% off. And we also get discounted food at the restaurant, which a lot of it is like burgers and fries and stuff like that. So when I started my job, not only was I drinking more, but I was also eating more junk food, because it would just be easier to get something to go from my work instead of coming home when I'm tired. And then because I didn't have the energy to like cook a meal and clean it and deal with that. It just felt like I don't want to do it. So I was doing that for a couple months, and it really started to take a toll on my body. The combination of the food and the drinking, like I was having low energy, I was feeling tired, physically feeling worse. I think like inflammation in my body and stuff, which wasn't helping my sore feet. I gained weight, and so like that made me feel more self-conscious and just overall like not feeling good, like not feeling healthy. So 2 of the things that I started doing this new year to deal with that was, one, I don't get takeout from my work as often. And the other thing I did is I stopped drinking in January. And it's only been 2 weeks, but I feel like I've been like way more productive in the past 2 weeks than I have in the past 2 months. Physically, I'm feeling way better, have more energy. I feel healthier. I don't feel this inflammation in my body. I do feel kind of sore still sometimes, but like now at least because I have more energy, like I'm making more effort to do things like stretching and yoga and like taking care of myself instead of, drinking instead to like deal with it. And I understand not everyone wants to quit drinking, or that's just like not what they're into right now. And I get it. Like it's so like a part of our culture. If you do want to quit drinking, I read this book called This Naked Mind by Annie Grace, and basically deals with training your subconscious to like not crave alcohol anymore. That book helped me immensely. I really don't crave alcohol anymore. So whatever whatever is in that book, it did its job, and I would definitely recommend it if you want to quit. But if you don't want to quit, and you find that like it does help you relax, or you're not really like, I don't know, if you don't want to quit, I would recommend at least cutting back like how much, like the quantity of alcohol you drink, and then also cutting back like how frequently you drink. I know everybody has a sort of different relationship with drinking, so whatever works for you, just be aware it doesn't help your health at all. So if you're, and it's not, and it also, it can give you feelings of like anxiety and stuff like that. Like they call it hangxiety when you have like a hangover anxiety. So it's not very good for your mental or physical health, which is why I would recommend cutting back. And I'm just saying that because I did it, and it has helped me a lot. We won't talk about drinking anymore, but we'll continue talking about the food stuff. So yeah, for me, like, because I am busy with my job, sometimes for me, like when I come home from work, I don't feel like cooking, and it is hard to have, have like healthy things, like cook healthy meals. And I get that too. A lot of people, they're just too busy. They don't have the time. It's way faster to drive through McDonald's and get a hamburger than it is to, cook the food. And then you got to clean it all up after too. So like if you have no motivation, I completely understand how this one can be kind of a hang up for some people. So I just wanted to give you some of like the things that I do, or some like tips that I have that have made me able to eat healthier. Personally, I don't meal prep. I feel like we don't have a big enough fridge to like fit all that stuff. But if you do, that's something I know works for a lot of people, is basically where you just like prepare your meals for the week all in one day and make it ahead of time. So you do have to spend that time, preparing the food just once, but then when you come home from work, or you got to go to work or take your lunch or whatever, like it's already there and it's ready to go, and it's healthy, right? Another thing that I do is getting like frozen fruits and vegetables, because I found that like when my husband and I would buy normal fruits and like fresh fruits and vegetables, we'd eat some of them, but like we wouldn't eat them fast enough or and so like then it would end up going bad. And then also when it's fresh, of course that's the best thing to do if you can, but again, when you have burnout, you don't have motivation. So I'm trying to give you tips that like to deal with it when you have no motivation. With the fruits, that can be a little bit easier to just like, grab it and go, like an apple or whatever. But for vegetables, I feel like you use them more for like cooking, so there's a little more work involved. But we do, frozen fruits and veggies. And then so the nice thing about that is that like the vegetables are already like washed and they're already cut. So I don't have to do all that extra steps in the cooking process. I literally can just throw them in the pan, or throw them in my air fryer, or throw them in the oven, and I have like veggies ready to go. Another thing that I did is like, I always wanted to be one of those girls that like wakes up and has a smoothie, but I freaking hate cleaning blenders. I think it's so annoying cleaning blenders for some reason. And we don't really have that much space in the kitchen to like have a whole blender. So I got a little immersion blender, and it makes it so simple. Again, I just literally throw the fruits from my freezer in there and like throw some, whatever kind of milk you want, throw it in there. And with the immersion blender, so it's super easy, right? You just, it's done. And then it's not really much cleanup process. Like I found you're supposed to wash it with soap and water, but if I do it right after I use it, I just rinse it off and like get, if there's any pieces of fruit on there, make sure they're all like rinsed off. There's no food on there, whatever. And that's it. Like that's the whole cleanup process. And so, for very minimal effort, like it's super easy to have fresh like fruits and vegetables made. And then the other thing that I would recommend doing is having like I always try to keep some like healthy snacks in my purse, like a baggie of like dates or nuts or like a power bar, because when you're having the burnout, you have like, sometimes I would notice I would be getting like cranky because of stress, or again, like the low energy. So if you're hungry, like that's gonna amplify those symptoms. So you just want to make sure you're always like, when you always have a snack on you, at least like your issues aren't a symptom of hunger. You're more able to be in tune with your body that way. And again, you're taking care of yourself and nourishing yourself. And then also when you snack, I felt like it makes me like, then when I go sit down to eat, I end up not overeating because I kind of like kept myself like lightly full throughout the day. All right, so those are my first 3 tips for burnout recovery. And to sum it up for you, the first one was tidy your home. The second one was set your boundaries. And the third one is to nourish your body. So for me, I felt like these first 3 were the ones that made the biggest impact in my burnout recovery. So I would recommend you maybe start with some of these ones. If you don't want to and you want to try some of the next 3 first, that's totally fine. You got to do with whatever feels right for you. But for me personally, I found that by addressing these ones first, it made the next 3 that I'll mention in the video go smoother and easier. After I finished recording this video, I remember there was something else I had to say about nourishing your body. So that's why the lighting looks a little different in this clip. But yeah, so when you are having like trauma or stress or whatever, it can actually get stored in your body. So in addition to the sleep, hydration, eating whole foods, if you have the motivation or feel so inclined, I would also highly suggest doing some sort of fun physical activity to get your body in motion and just sort of release some of that mental, emotional, physical tension that's stored up in there. If you don't necessarily have to go to the gym and do the traditional type of exercise, you can do things like yoga or hula hooping, roller skating, swimming, take a salsa dance class, whatever you're into. I personally like just putting some happy music on my Spotify and dancing in my bedroom. Another thing I like doing is just Pilates workout videos on YouTube in my bedroom with my little yoga mat. So there's a lot of ways that you can get your body moving and doing stuff in a way, just find something that you enjoy. If it feels like work or you're not really feeling it, maybe try a different activity, or you could find friends to do something with you too. That's always fun. Even just taking a walk out in nature can be very recharging and help to release some of that. So, yeah, that's my last little tip on body nourishment. All right, so those are my first 3 tips for burnout recovery. And to sum it up for you, the first one was tidy your home. The second one was set your boundaries. And the third one is to nourish your body. So for me, I felt like these first 3 were the ones that made the biggest impact in my burnout recovery. So I would recommend you maybe start with some of these ones. If you don't want to and you want to try some of the next 3 first, that's totally fine. You got to do with whatever feels right for you. But for me personally, I found that by addressing these ones first, it made the next 3 that I'll mention in the video go smoother and easier. If you have any questions or anything that you want to share about this video, feel free to comment down below. And just don't forget that this is a process. You got to take as much time as you need, take whatever baby steps you got to take, go easy and gentle on yourself. And I'll catch you on the next video. Bye.